And you've just heard When You Let It All Fall Away, the new single from singer-songwriter Ally Kerr. And I'm delighted to be joined by Ally now. Hello.
Hello, Ali. How are you?
I'm really well, thanks. So
Good.
what can you tell us about the single?
The single, well, yeah, before writing this album, I was writing an instrumental album and I kind of got a bit lost between finishing the instrumental album and sort of getting back into the singer-songwriter way of writing. And that was a song that came quite early and I sort of thought, I'm back, I'm feeling a bit better about it all. Like I'm starting to kind of get there with it. Previously, I was writing almost instrumental music and trying to fit a melody, a vocal melody on top of that.
Right.
This was one that came very kind of guitar and vocal came at the same time. I thought this is because I was about 18 months without writing a song and I was thinking, what's going on? That's the longest in my life really. So that one came quite quickly musically and I had the idea for the lyric in my head anyway. So it kind of that one came together quite painlessly, I suppose you could say.
That's interesting. Was that a kind of deliberate decision to concentrate on the sound? I mean, you did an album called Soundtracks, didn't you? Is that your last album? Is that right?
Yeah, so the last singer-songwriter one was 2019 called Upgrade Me. And then lockdown happened. Everybody, didn't they? Everybody wrote an instrumental album. I think that's I think that's what everybody did. And I just basically taught myself how to I always wanted to arrange strings and write orchestral music, and the technology now exists that you can do that pretty convincingly. So I got really, really into that. I went down a rabbit hole as I often do with a lot of things, and I kind of came out about 2 years later or a year and a half later with a finished album. It was never meant to be anything. It was just me for fun going down a rabbit hole learning, and I ended up learning audio engineering at the same time as learning how to
All
arrange
right.
strings and write songs that way. So it was always my ambition to write a cinematic instrumental album because I'm very much influenced by that and John Barry and Morricone
Yeah.
and these kind of guys. So it was a kind of dream to be able to sit, like a kid in a sweetie factory, being able to, or sweetie shop, just being able to pick whatever instruments I want and, construct this imaginary music score, I guess. So I've been writing like that. Um, and yeah, just kind of that was the problem. I was then trying to put on the singer-songwriter hat, but I was writing instrumental music. So I got a bit jumbled up. I didn't really know how to write that kind of music I was doing before. So
That's really so. Was it almost like a kind of writer's block because you were still making music and still
I
coming up
was
with?
still making music. I was writing I couldn't get I was tons of instrumentals were coming out, and but I thought I've kind of done that. I want to get back to the guitar, and but I just couldn't really figure out. It just tended to be instrumentals I was writing. Then I was thinking afterwards about what's the vocal melody. It doesn't work like that. You can't. The ultimate test was, can I play this on the acoustic guitar? Does it sound good? Answer no. So you move on, that's the ultimate test. If you can strip it right back, just you and your acoustic guitar and the vocal, is it any good? If it's not, you're just polishing a turd essentially. So I was doing a lot of turd polishing for about 18.
Because I remember when Soundtracks came out and listened to it and really enjoying it, but thinking this is very different for Ally Kerr. This is a different kind of way of doing things, and it's very interesting to hear then that I almost stopped you getting back to what we probably know you best for, which is
Yeah,
a singer-songwriter.
yeah, absolutely. I think I'll always write melodies. Melody is the most important thing to me. It's always been what I'm drawn to in music. It's always the first thing that gets me is a melody that kind of moves. And if there's a lyric that combines with that melody to add more impact, that's a fantastic thing. So yeah, I just had to get it off my chest. I think that kind of I still would love to write more of it. But it just kind of went out there, put it out there. With the best will in the world, it kind of did what it did, which is not very much. And then I thought, right, I better try and, get the guitar going again and see what I can come up with singer-songwriter. But as I say, I was stuck for 18 months and I was thinking, what's going on? But fortunately, I had a breakthrough. I started to approach it in a different way, kind of realized where the mistakes I was making, and I just tried again.
And once you had the first lyric and song written, did it all kind of follow on from there? Did it kind of snowball from there?
Yeah, basically, it was almost like a kind of something clicked in my brain that just this is how you do it. And I wasn't wanting to write from the guitar all the time because I'm quite limited. I always you just go to the same chords all the time. So I was trying to use the keyboard and come up with song ideas that way. And but crucially, with the vocal melody leading everything. So I think that was a kind of difference between the instrumental stuff. The instrumental stuff was more chord progressions. This was more, what is the melody of the song? Can I sing it? Can I sing it in the shower? Can I whistle it when I'm, walking? So yeah, that's
And
where
this is the first release from an album which is coming out. What's the album called, and when will you think it'll be out?
Yeah, so the album's called True Nature, and it's going to be out on the 25th of April on my own label, which is called Much Obliged Records. So I run my label and I license the album to different places, just depending on what the album is, who's interested and stuff like that. So the album's coming out 25th of April next year, this year.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
year now we're into it.
Yeah.
And what can we expect from it? I mean, is the single a good indicator of what we might expect?
I think so. The latest single, When You Let It All Fall Away, is very stripped back with the acoustic guitar, piano, violin, and vocal. There's other aspects going on in the rest of the songs. As I say, because I'm recording at home now, and I kind of learned a bit about audio engineering. I got a bit. I could experiment more because the meter's not running.
Yeah.
And some of the samples you can get, as I say, are amazing, and you can just sort of play around with stuff. So there's a bit more. There's some electric guitar, there's some sort of synths and soundscapes, there's a violin, flute, piano, there's a lot of things in the songs. So I just kind of approached each song, what does it need? And I worked on my own producing the album, which is a first for me. I usually work with other musicians and a producer, but I was very lucky because my friend and previous producer Biff Smith from A New International, who are good friends of mine and a band I absolutely love. He was kind of my ears. He said, "Look, just send me what you're doing. If you want me to listen to it, I'll listen to it, and I'll tell you what my ears tell me," sort of thing. And to have that kind of foil, to have somebody who you really trust and respect giving you that feedback was crucially important for me to kind of get the songs over the line. And he was hugely helpful in that.
So although you produced it yourself, to still have Biff there, a show
Yeah.
you say you've worked with before as a producer. Yeah. And I noticed that you're going to be playing with A New International end of January.
We are, yeah. So that's going to be a hairy one because I've not played. The last show I did was in 2019. I was lucky enough to do a tour in China, and my last show was in Beijing in 2019. So it's been a while. So and also that was with a violin player called Caroline. So I've usually got somebody there with me, but I decided I just want to see what I can do solo because the likelihood is I'll be going out doing shows this year, next year abroad, just myself, given how expensive it is now to travel and do this kind of stuff. So I'm thinking, how can I make it interesting rather than me just plonking on the guitar for 30 minutes? So, I might use some video. I've got some ideas for sort of video backgrounds, video backdrops, and how I can use some backing tracks, kind of what's the word, tastefully, so it's not a karaoke session, but they're adding something to the dynamics of the set. So I'm kind of interested in sort of designing out a set. So this is just me. I'm not going to be doing all that in the Glasgow. I'm just going to try and sort of feel my way back into it. So hopefully it'll be, and I'm playing with good friends. Do you know what I mean? So they'll kind of, I'm playing with the New International, my other friends, Doghouse Roses. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's very much a kind of friends come along and let's sort of see what happens.
And it's in the old Hairdressers, which is a great
It
venue
is,
for
yeah.
that kind of thing, a really kind of intimate venue.
Absolutely. I love the place.
And it strikes me as, just as we're talking, that making music and how you can make music and the economics of making music have really changed since 2019.
Yeah.
The idea of going and playing in Beijing, that's a completely different, I mean, as challenging as that might have been in 2019, now with everything that's going on, it's completely changed, I take it.
It has. I mean, I've been offered to go out there again this year, which I'm excited about, but they've basically said we can only afford to bring you this time. That's the reality of it. Flights have gone up, they're sort of twice the price or whatever, and then the airlines now get so sort of greedy with charging you for your guitar. You used to be able to sort of sneak it on, or your violin could just kind of come on. You could put it in the apartment above and stuff like that, but that's kind of changed as well. So it is more challenging. So I'm thinking, how can I kind of make a show interesting for folk with my limited my limited abilities, So I'm really into technology. I like how technology can enable somebody like me who's not a particularly great musician, but has ideas. How can technology help me get these ideas out and express myself that way? So I'm interested to try and put that into practice in terms of a live show. And also in Asia, there's a big thing about, video screens. That's quite a big part of shows. It is here, obviously, but that's even in the small venues, it's quite a big thing. So
Right.
so that's going to be quite interesting to see how I can put that together. And I do a lot of video work as well, so that's something that
Yeah.
interests me.
And I guess also in that period, you're saying you were into technology and how you can use that. That's changed hugely. And during COVID, it actually seemed to accelerate how,
Yeah,
because of the necessity of doing it on your own, in your own room or
yeah.
in your own space. I mean, that must have changed hugely.
It has, and it's even just in the last little while. It's some of the sort of sample libraries and the technology you can get to help you. To help you get, if you don't understand music, you don't understand music theory, you just have the ideas. How can you get that out? There's all sorts of stuff, tools you can use. I mean, I run my own label and stuff, and AI is like my massively helpful because I'm trying to do everything myself, do the marketing, do the promotion, do the videos, do the, kind of how are things performing and stuff like that. And you can just chuck a bunch of information into AI, get it to tell you, right, this song's performing well. Maybe you should put a little bit more budget behind this or whatever, it's a huge, or writing a press release. I'll write a press release and get AI to try and just help me get it better just because I don't have the time to do everything, myself. So it's a huge, yeah, I use technology and AI massively.
That's really interesting, Ali, because it's very rare to hear someone talking about, AI seems to be a bit of a bogeyman because people like myself don't know much about it. And you're starting to see, if you do any Google search, an AI, at the beginning saying, oh, this is the kind of answer that you're looking for. So it's really interesting to hear you saying how helpful it can be, especially on
Well,
the day I think where Labour are looking to introduce it into a lot of things in the way they work.
so,
Really helpful to kind of deal with a lot of the stuff which everyone has to deal with in terms of music now.
yeah, I mean, just to organize it, as an administrative kind of assistant, basically to me, kind of sitting here trying to do all these different things. I've always been quite kind of entrepreneurial. I've always been quite driven in that way in terms of like taking control of my music ever since, I kind of thought this streaming is going to be the thing. Make sure you've got control of your masters and all of that kind of stuff and get educated about copyright and these kind of things, the boring stuff, but the important stuff, because I kind of wanted to be doing this for a long time. So
Yeah.
I took an interest early on and making sure that everything was right. So now I just kind of just want everything to be in the right place. And as I say, AI can help massively with the administrative, because music stuff can be really dull, ISRC codes and the whole thing, it's about information retrieval and it's not very rock and roll, but to be in the game for a while, I think you've got to be in control of that kind of stuff, and AI helps basically. So
Yeah. And I guess, like anything, you've just got to be very careful about the information you put into it to make sure you get the right stuff back out of it.
exactly, that's a skill. I think the jobs of the future won't be taken by AI. It'll be the people that can prompt AI. They'll be the ones who can actually get ahead. If you're actually able to get what you're wanting out of AI, I've got very clear ideas of what I want it to do, and if you can guide it, I think that's a real skill in itself, prompting it.
And I mean, you mentioned working with Biff and other producers in the past, some well-known names as well. Do you enjoy that collaborative aspect of it? Or, a singer-songwriter in most people's heads is a solitary occupation, especially when you're saying you're going to do it just you and the guitar. But do you enjoy the collaborative nature of things?
I do. When it came to working with Biff and New International, I loved it. We did two albums together. They played on my last two albums, and we were in the studio working with Johnny Smiley as well. Who we've all got kind of similar tastes, and we kind of all knew what we were trying to do, and I love that aspect of it. So yeah, I do miss that in terms of sort of doing it myself, but it just kind of happened. It really just, it was no intention to learn how to do this stuff. I didn't think I was capable of being able to produce music or get get performances that would be good enough to be on a record. So it just kind of happened. It wasn't a big plan. I'd love to go back into a studio and record with musicians, and I probably will in the future. That's something that they're super talented, those guys. So it'd be great to work with them again. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But in terms of just getting back in the saddle and writing and recording an album, where the meter's not running and you can take some chances and play around with stuff. This was a great opportunity just to go for it, you know. So
Because I was going to ask you if you have, you know, if every album necessitates a different approach, but it sounds as though it just depends on circumstance. This is the right album for where you are at this moment in time.
yeah, especially lyrically, this album was. It's kind of yeah, it's quite a personal album in a lot of ways. It's quite the themes are quite universal, and in that I kind of took a lot of time to sort of try and stop the chatter in my head, and a lot of the themes in the songs are about that, and yeah, so it was kind of nice. So I've kind of got I feel like as if I've got that in my system. So I'm not sure what the next album's going to be like. I've got the first song in the next album, but I can't get ahead of myself.
When you were going through this period where you weren't writing songs, um, were you listening to kind of maybe favorite singer-songwriters of your own to try and inspire it, or did you just think, no, this has got to come from me?
I just think it's got to come from me. I mean, I listen to music and you know, I try and I watch films and but I tend to spend a lot of time just yeah, just creating and yeah. Sorry, I don't know. I just started rambling
Well,
there.
but that gets to another point. Are you as inspired in terms of whatever you create? It happens to be music, but are you inspired as much by other art forms as you are by other music?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm big on films. I watch a lot of films, and there was a time when I had like during the summer I had a lot of time, and I just start and watch loads of films. You know, like I'll watch anything that's got good characters and you know a good story. I don't, you know, I watched a great film called The Servant, 1963, I think it was,
Right?
Joseph Lossley and The Go-Between, I think he did as well. And I kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole, you know, I really like that director and I sort of but I'll watch anything and read anything and listen to anything if it's got some character and some heart, you know. So, but I'm not like massive. I don't consume massive amounts of um, books and films and music. I don't think, but I kind of jump around a lot. You know, I'm a bit of a, as Biff said, a musical magpie. You know, just kind of also steal bits of things. You know.
And in terms of your songs, do you consider them? Do you consider yourself a storyteller in some way, or is it not? Is it more complex than that?
I think it's more whatever's in my mind. I think I tend to write more from my experience or what I'm feeling rather than storytelling. Um, that I tend to pick the guitar up when I've got something in my mind or I've got something to say or I want to express something. I think the songs that I kind of maybe think are my strongest are where the melody and the vocal comes together because there's a certain feeling behind it. You get that kind of connection between lyric and song and lyric and music, sorry. So that sometimes that can be a good thing. But I've never sort of sat lyrically. You know, I do struggle with through periods where I don't. I think, what? Why would I write anything? I've got nothing to say, you know. And then there'll be times where I do have something to say. So I think when I try and force it, it shows. So and also, you know, there's songs of it in the past. You're like, I wish I had an editor at that point because
Uh,
one thing Biff used to say to me was, you know, he used to kind of pull me up in a lyric, you know, in a lyric and say, you know, because I used to just write whatever was in my head in the first few albums. I just literally, I wouldn't think about it. I just write it and that would be it. I would never sort of question it. It's almost like that's it. And I think I've become a little bit more of an editor now. Um, yeah, which I think is a good thing because I'd go back and I'd change things. But I mean, everybody probably would. But
yeah.
um, yeah, so I'm a little bit more careful and take my time a little bit more and let there be more time between finishing a song and saying, that's it finished. Now,
Yeah. So yeah, basically, a lot of writers that I speak to, the hard part for them is getting the initial words out and actually the joy, and it starts to take shape in the edit. And I wonder if in songs now that you know that you're looking at them a bit more closely and taking a bit of time with them, do they start to take real form in that kind of editing process?
yeah, they do. And also you realize that once that's out there, that's out there.
Yeah.
I think when I first recorded the first album, where you know there's a lot of very innocent kind of lyrics and songs in that, and I'm proud of it, you know, for
Mm.
what it was. I really am, but you know, looking back, you know, you just think maybe maybe could have taken a bit more time, but you know, that's just life, you know, and that's informed me now that I'd spent more time over these lyrics of the last album, the last two albums certainly. And I feel better for that because I know that once they're recording out and they're out there, that's them out there sort of thing. So that's been yeah, that's been a bit of bit of a development, I suppose.
In a moment, we're going to hear Back Again. Is that on the album as well?
It is, yeah. So that's the first song on the album. There's 10 songs on the album in total. So there's going to be, it's all sort of singles these days. So there's going to be like 4 singles, and then the album finally comes out. So that was the first single on the album.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we haven't touched upon. We've said how making music and the possibilities of making music has changed, and how the technical side of things may have changed, but the way of releasing music's changed as well. I've been talking to a few folk over the last, say, year about the different ways there are of trying to release music, and so is that something you've thought about and said, yeah, for this album, I'll run a singles and then the album will be out?
Yeah, so I've been in the same way. I love to keep in touch with technology and what's happening. I love sort of keeping in track of what people are doing in music and how they're releasing music, how people are consuming music. I won't use the word content because I hate the word content in music. How people are promoting music. Because I'm just a wee guy with a wee label, and I'm trying to get people's attention the same way that the majors and the big indies and the small indies are trying to get people's attention. So how can I do that best? So I am very interested in that side of things, and yeah, the sort of growing notion that you put out a single makes a lot of sense, because Spotify only allows you one song to promote per release. So you've got to really, if you just put the album out, it just goes into the ether and never to be heard. So you've got to kind of try and build momentum. And I reckon sort of 4 and then album. So that's like, so by the time the album comes out, there'll be one more song. So it'll be almost half the album. Some people have heard it. That's enough, because you don't want to sort of, overkill it sort of thing. So that's the kind of motivation. But then you start thinking, I need to make 5 videos. I need to plan 5 campaigns for release, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, So I've been trying to think, how can I make each single's got a little mini campaign behind it,
Yeah.
little videos, that's all quite consistent. So how can I do that? And so that's very creative. I love all that. A lot of people, it's a lot of work, but I genuinely love to think about these kind of things, and how can I make a little video for it and keep it interesting. I work with a friend of mine in Spain. He's a graphic designer and a musician called Sebastian, in a brilliant band called Cineplex, and he does the covers and stuff for me. So yeah, so I love getting into all that. But yeah, it's totally changed even since 2019. I'm doing I'm doing a lot of things differently with the label than I was back in 2019. So yeah.
Well, Ally, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you. A real pleasure. Thank you for doing it.
Thanks for inviting me, Ally.
And this is Ally Kerr, and Back Again.